Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video I'm going to be talking about how to get your Ret Paladin ready for Season 2 10.1 coming up on Tuesday. Now I do not have a guide up yet, nor will I have it up this week, perhaps next week though, because it's not really time to put out a guide yet. There still could be more tuning coming out that could change a lot of things, especially with tier sets, change priority of what your abilities are, etc, etc, etc. And so, but what I can do is I can kind of help you be a little bit prepared for some decisions you might have to make before at least my guide's out for Ret Paladin. So one thing you might be thinking about for Tuesday is, what am I going to do for embellishments, right? I see that question asked a lot actually, and it's a good question. So right now, my current character, I have the Frostfire belt and I have fangs on my weapon because I crafted my weapon. And that's just what I ran. And it's a pretty good set. Your other options for like rating, right, are the bracers and then like the lariat, right? Lariat did get nerfed. It's still going to be strong once you socket all of your gear at the end of the season. But until that point, it's not that strong. It's also not super strong for Ret. Simply because all those, it's not... We don't get as much benefit from it as a class that gets more benefits from its stats, right? So it's not super OP for Ret in any means, but it will be good once you're at the end of the season and you have sockets on all your like ancillary pieces of your gear. So you might be wondering, okay, which pieces should I be worried about? So first, let's talk about single target, and of course this will be in my guide. But the Frostfire belt's a really good one to go to. Now the issue with it is crit mastery. You don't really have a choice on that on the stats, but you can. The belt is very strong as far as an embellishment for Ret Paladins. It also does, help your single target build doesn't have as much fire damage. So it does, if you are using your Seal of Dearness Chosen, it does help make sure that that's keeping up prog as much as possible as well for single target builds. And this is single target embellishments. Now, the thing you're probably going to want to go with is the Shadow Flame Patch, I believe it's called. And you can just craft that on any like random piece of gear. So you can like craft that on like you probably wouldn't want it on a ring, but you could craft it like on your bracers. You could get some bracers crafted. You could get some boots crafted. Things like that. I think some people were maybe talking about gloves. Probably a low stat priority item. And you could get these crafted. You could put verse on them, of course, and you could put the Shadow Flame Patch on them as far as embellishments go. Now, obviously, if you're going to go that route, and then the other option is, as long as they don't change it, is you can do 2 Shadow Flame Patches, and again, just put them on 2 pieces of gear that are not that important. Now, the wrist guards are still fine. The allied wrist guards will give verse. Like I said, the lariat will still be good at the end. Fangs will still be like close. The embellishments are not like huge modifiers of your damage. There's people in the top, for example, there's people in the top parses that have lariat on. There's people in the top parses that have fangs on their weapon. It's not going to be the determining factor, but you still might want to know what you want to craft there. For me, I'm thinking about going with my belt, even though it is crit mastery. Mostly because I've been putting, I'm a weapon crafter on my blacksmithing, and I've been putting things into belt to be prepared, and I think I might just recraft it myself. It's kind of a silly reason, but, like I said, it's not a huge deal which one you choose. When it comes to AoE, however, instead of having something like the Frostfire belt, you probably want like the legs. So there's Frostfire legs that you can have crafted. These are really good for Mythic Plus, right? And then for your... and then the allied bracers are also pretty good for Mythic Plus as well. Again, Lariat too, especially as the season goes on, is good for Mythic Plus too. So those are kind of your options there. So you're kind of, if you really wanted to have like a gear set for each thing, you would want to have your Frostfire belt and your Frostfire legs, one for single target, one for multi-target, and then like another piece to go with those, or like a Shadow Flame Patch or something to go with both of them, or you could use Lariat. Whatever you wanted to do there. So that if you're thinking about embellishments and crafting your gear, that's where you want to think there. I'm not going to go fully into how the upgrade system works because I'm trying to keep this a little bit centered on Ret Paladin for this video. But make sure you aren't wasting things on a piece like you're not going to keep forever, right? Like if I go all in on my Frostfire belt, it's because I'm planning on using that for the entire patch, right? I don't want to use something early. Like when the resources are going to be finite the first couple weeks, and then we'll have an abundance of them later on. So while there's a finite amount of resources, I want to use it on something that's also finite. And later on, I'll craft something that's more, whimsical later on in the patch. So you might want to be thinking of that as well. You might be thinking about weapons as well, right? Should you craft your own weapon? Should you hold your spark for your weapon and just craft that on week 2? So there's a couple ways to look at this. I think for me, the way I'm looking at it, and I think it'll depend on if you're a raider, it'll depend on your raid team if you are a raider. But the first boss, it's worth noting, on heroic and the first boss may be very easy to kill on mythic as well, does drop a strength weapon. So you do have easy access to a weapon early. And even on mythic, even if it's not first week for you, for your guild, whatever, there is a 441 weapon off the first boss. Now for my guild, there's not a ton of us that are going to be fighting over this weapon. So I probably will get it at least somewhat early. Of course, you could get bad luck too. It also could end up in your vault, once you get to 3 bosses killed. So there is a chance to get a pretty strong weapon early that can help carry you. Now, of course, crafting the new weapon with the effect on it in your crafting, that will also give you a huge boost, because it'll be like 447 or something like that, and you'll have a very strong weapon with a strong proc on it. And that weapon is actually very similar to the power of the Ashkendir weapon. So this drops off of the second to last boss, the Therian, and the crafted weapon's very similar power, especially because this is crit mastery, and you can put crit verse on your crafted weapon and give it better stats as well. So they're very similar as of right now, Ashkendir with the crafted weapon. So the argument for crafting the weapon early is that I'm not going to get a mythic weapon for a very long time, a mythic Ashkendir for a very long time. So I'm just going to have my best in slot weapon, and then when I get Ashkendir, I'll replace it later on. So you're not, in that case, you wouldn't be taking the finite part of it, right? And even then, you might not replace it, right? Because you might say, well, it's only a 1% DPS increase or something like that. So I'm just going to let the warrior have it or something like that in my raid team. When it comes to Mythic Plus, if you're a Mythic Plus player, you're not going to have access to this. I think that actually makes a better argument for waiting and crafting your weapon if that's what you want. But that's really up to you. I think maybe the laggards, which are really, really good for Mythic Plus, could be a good option there. But that it's completely up to you and how you value your resources. But these are the kinds of things that you should be thinking about when it comes to that. Lastly, we've gone over trinkets. They did nerf Neltharian's Call. It's not a huge nerf to Ret, but it is a nerf to Ret. In my trinkets video where I was just speculating, mind you, I forgot to mention Beacon of the Beyond. So now this is by far the best trinket. It is also the last boss, but you can upgrade it. So even if you're able to run the raid on normal, getting this is good. And so the things you want to be thinking about upgrading from the raid or whatever are Beacon of the Beyond and tier pieces and things like that. So if you're going to be using your crest at all to upgrade your gear, you're going to want to be using it on these types of things. Beacon of the Beyond is a big one. Obviously, if you do get a hold of the Therian's Call to Chaos, it's still really good. It's just not, as powerful. And I think we might see some more tuning on that, to be honest, because I think it really fell off for a lot of people. And other than that, the trinkets aren't super good in this raid. You'll want to simulate it once they become simulatable, but again, some of the simulations are not super accurate right now, so you do want to hold off. So you might want to hold off on, if you're kind of skeptical about something and its power, then you might want to hold off on upgrading it. I'd say the one that you can guarantee upgrade though is the Beacon of the Beyond. If you get that, you could also think about upgrading a normal or heroic Ashkendir if you wanted to. I think you can upgrade the Ashkendir heroic 4 item levels from 437 to 441 or something like that. So you might want to think about that, especially if you get a normal one and you're not going to craft a weapon. So that's something you can think about. So you want to be thinking about upgrading rare stuff and best in slot stuff. And then the last thing I want to touch on real quick is tier stuff. That's another question I see a lot to get you prepared. So the reality is, what's the current 4 set for Ret? Holy Power abilities deal 10% increased damage, is not as strong as the 2 set that's coming out with 10.1, right? So, and then the 4 set is not as strong as this old 2 set, if that kind of makes sense to you, at the same item level. So you'll see people saying, well, Ret runs 2-piece. And that is true for a while, but that will most likely be taken over by item level. So basically, if you're in Mythic raid gear right now, or the equivalent from Mythic Plus, so like your 421 item level, and you obviously scale this down if you're at a lower item level. If you get normal tier, even if you get all 4 pieces of normal raid tier in the first week, if you manage to pull that off, you might only want to wear 2 and 2 pieces, at least for single target. And probably for multi-target too, but you'd have to simulate that. But at least for single target, you'd want to wear 2-piece until you get higher item level 4-piece, or until you upgrade the item level of your 4-piece. And because of that fact, you really shouldn't be taking tier from other people in your raid team whose 4 set is just like really, really strong and really, really good for them. You don't want to like steal their 4 set, in my opinion. You'll want to just get it when it's a higher item level, because that's when it's a big upgrade for you. That's when it's a real upgrade for you. Now, again, we could see tuning Monday on the tier sets, for example, or on Tuesday or whenever. We could see tuning on that because if Blizzard isolates the classes, because there's other specs too that would use 2-piece for a while at least. There's some I think that might be planning on using 2-piece for the entire patch, and we could definitely see some adjustments on those, because I know they don't like that as a pattern. So we could see tuning on that, and if the tuning changes, then you throw this out the window, right? Then you just go for your 4-piece. But right now, I know there's a lot of confusion with that on the whole 2-piece thing. It's 2-piece at similar item level, and then 2-piece 4-piece as you increase your item level of your tier gear, right? So you get into heroic tier gear, all of a sudden the heroic tier gear might be close or better. You get into mythic tier gear, and then it like surpasses, right? And so these are the kinds of things that you have to think about when it comes to that. But I did want to put this out here just in case there is no tuning, in case there's no changes to Ret directly before Tuesday. I did want to have something out there to keep you a little bit prepared. Some things that I see a lot of people asking questions about, and things that I can provide pretty highly accurate information from, even though there's not 100% accurate information out. You like there's no public rat sims out that are accurate right now, for example, right? So and I don't really have any comment on that. I don't know why that is, but whatever the reasons are, that it just doesn't exist. So, and I'm not willing to learn how to do the work and do the work myself, so I'm not going to really complain about it personally. But yeah, that's where we are there. Good luck to everybody on Tuesday. If there is tuning on Ret, I will make a tuning video on Ret on Monday or whatever, if there is. But until then, unless looking for tuning, and then if there's no tuning, I'm just going to send the guide, right? Once it's confirmed there's no tuning, and I assume simulations are working and trinkets are finalized and everything like that, that's when I'll put out the guide. So good luck to everybody on patch day if I don't see you before then, and hopefully the loot finds you well and you do very, very well for yourselves. So that's it for this one. As always, I do ask you please click subscribe, because that helps me a lot. Other than that, everybody have a good one.